Well, hello and welcome to this session of ExecuNet Masterclass. I'm your host, as always, Tony Vlahos, and my guest this hour is the CEO of Consulting Success, Mr. Michael Zapperski. Do you think being an independent consultant is just a pipe dream? Well, it isn't. You can become an independent consultant, and today Michael will explain the 4 steps you should take to create a successful consulting business. Pretty important stuff, and part of our daily commitment here at ExecuNet to connect you with trusted voices, people like Michael, who can show you how to pivot to your best career and have the life you want. Well, I am really happy to bring on today's guest. Michael Zapperski is the CEO of Consulting Success, where they specialize in helping entrepreneurial consultants grow profitable, predictable, and strategic consulting businesses. He has advised organizations like Financial Times, Dow Jones, RBC, and he's helped Panasonic launch new products into global markets. But most important, he has helped over 500 consultants from around the world in over 75 industries add 6 and 7 figures to their annual revenues. Over 35,000 consultants read Michael's weekly consulting newsletter. He's also the author of 5 books, including Amazon bestsellers such as Act Now, How Successful Consultants Thrive During Chaos and Uncertainty. With that brief introduction, welcome, Michael, to the ExecuNet stage. They are all yours.
Thanks so much, Tony and Kimberly, and great to be with everyone here. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me and maybe see me as well on video. If you guys can just type in the chat box there, and then Tony and Kimberly, let me know if there are any issues. But it's really great to be with you all. And one thing that I always like to ask before we just dive in is, I know that it's easy to be distracted, right? That you have different tabs open, you might have noise in the background, whatever it might be, but we often don't have a lot of time to just focus on our businesses, on our careers, and really be strategic. So I want to encourage all of you right now to try and remove any distractions that you have. I'm going to try and go through a lot of content and share a lot of ideas with you, and want to also encourage you to take some notes. So the more focused that you can be on this kind of journey and this time that we have together, I think the more that you'll get out of it. So that's just a quick one request from me here today. But again, really honored to be with all of you and excited to dive in. There's a lot to cover, but what I'm really excited for is opening up for some questions when we get through some of the content here today. So as Tony mentioned, we're going to be talking about 4 steps to become a successful consultant. And really to start this off, as an executive, you have the experience and expertise to build a highly profitable consulting business. And in this presentation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to take that experience and expertise to actually translate that and transition into becoming a successful consultant and having a successful consulting business if you choose to. And I'm going to talk about and share the story of Amanda Hill and how Amanda made this transition. But before I do, I thought I would share a little bit about my journey. And Tony's actually really done a great job of that intro. I didn't know what would be coming, so I was going to just share a little bit about my 20 plus years of building consulting businesses around the world and working with many different clients in many industries, in many places, and how many of our clients are, advising and consulting for some of the best known organizations around the globe, whether it's nonprofits or for-profits, startups or multi-billion-dollar organizations. We send out a weekly consulting newsletter to 35,000 people, and these are the 4 latest books. But I'm not going to spend time on this because Tony's already done a great job on it. What I do want to do is just to honor all of you and appreciate you for being here today. I want to offer you a copy of my most recent book that just came out. It's called The Future of Consulting: How to Turn Today's Opportunities into Tomorrow's Business Advantage. We've had about 10,000 people that have gotten the book so far, and you can get a completely free copy. Tony and Kimberly have set up a link here for you. So if you go to execunet.com/consulting success, again, execunet.com/consulting success, you can just fill in the form they have set up there, request the book, and we'll make sure to get that out to you guys. All right, with that out of the way, let's get back to Amanda's story, because prior to her starting her consulting business, Amanda had spent about 19 years at Procter and Gamble, right? Very well-known organization. And she was the brand director there. She managed brands worth more than $1 billion. And she helped really add millions in sales for the department division that she was running. And she really created tremendous results at P&G. She loved working at the firm. When I talked to her even today, and she was on our podcast recently, kind of sharing her journey, she said how much she really got out of that experience. But deep down, she really felt like she wanted more. She wanted to explore working in other industries. She wanted the opportunity to make more money. She wanted to be able to spend more time with her family. And also she wanted to reach her true potential. How does that resonate with any of you guys right now? Maybe just type in the chat box if any of those things are important to you, or if you've been thinking about any of those things. I'd really like to know. But what Amanda did is she decided that she wanted to take the skills that she developed as an executive and start her own consulting business. It was something that she had thought about for quite some time, but wasn't sure about when and how to pull the trigger. And so she wanted to take her skills and offer them to other organizations and really go about realizing her true potential. And so today, Amanda is the CEO and president of Female Forward. It's a consultancy that helps brands sell more effectively to women. And so she's really leveraged her past experience and expertise in that area, and is now offering that to many organizations. And she's built up a very, very successful company as a result. And so she now has more flexibility, more freedom, more revenue than she could have really ever hoped for in her corporate career. So chances are, right, you are like Amanda. You're an experienced senior executive who's created results for your company or past company. And other companies will pay you for the results that you can create for them. Now, I want to ask you a quick question, guys. What % of the American workforce do you believe will engage in consulting or freelancing this year? Just go ahead and type in the chat box there. And I don't know, Tony or Kimberly, if you're able to kind of read out what people are typing in, I'd love to know. I'm not sure if I can see that or not here.
Michael, I'd be happy to. And a couple of folks are chatting in. I've got 33%. Gosh, big response. Thanks, everyone. 40%. 35%, 5%, 15%. It seems to be all over the map. Oh, there's a 50%. So yeah, a couple of 50s. And
all right.
We're from 5% to 50%. What's the right answer, Michael?
Okay, well, according to Forbes, the right answer is 50%. So some of you, ding, 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 right? You got that right. But I find this to be a very interesting number. And what's interesting about this is this number continues to increase, right? So 50% of the American workforce is expected to engage in independent freelance and consulting work this year, according to Forbes. And the research that we've done at Consulting Success, because we run studies several times throughout the year where we ask the 35,000 plus people on our email list, what are you doing? And we ask a lot of different studies around marketing and fees, and growth and all that kind of stuff. This number is not just in the US. This is certainly happening. The acceleration is happening all across the globe. And because of COVID, right, the acceleration has actually happened where organizations are now looking more to outside expertise in higher numbers than they ever have before. And if you think about that for a moment, organizations pre-COVID really focused on always bringing in full-time people, having the best talent in-house, creating that culture. And what many have now seen is that they're able to still be very profitable. They're able to work at higher levels of productivity. Their people are actually happy working outside of the office or having sometime a hybrid, sometime outside, sometime inside. But the bigger thing that has happened with many organizations is they now have kind of recognized that there is a talent pool outside of their organization, and they can tap into those people without having to pay full-time salaries, without having to pay bonuses and all kinds of stuff. Therefore, right, the world now becomes available to them. This talent pool of experts becomes available to them. And so if you have expertise, there is great demand because organizations are looking for experts. They realize they don't need to have a big head count. They don't need a lot of resources, infrastructure. They don't need as much floor space anymore to have everybody under one roof. And so if you have expertise, then there is great demand. And again, if you know how to kind of tap into this, this is a big growing opportunity. This is from Statista. It shows how, consulting has continued to grow over and over, right, each year. And this is a trend that will likely continue to increase going forward. So today, what I really want to get into is I'm going to show you how to package, position, price, and market your expertise in an effective way to build a meaningful and valuable consulting business. And so by the end of the presentation, what I really hope that you'll understand and see are the 4 steps that you can actually start taking to become a successful independent consultant and build a consulting business. So the first step, guys, and just go ahead and maybe type in the chat box. Let me know, is everyone following along? Just type in and let me know. Great. Okay, so let's get into the first step here. And this is essential, right? This is what we call ideal client clarity. And it's how to identify your most profitable and the area that you will kind of gain the greatest fulfillment in terms of who is your ideal client. What is your true area of specialization? So step number one, right, is to identify who your ideal client is. We call this ideal client clarity. And many challenges that I see that consultants and people face in their business or in getting started stems from their lack of clarity, right, or kind of specificity on who their ideal client should be. And that's common because you come into this typically with many years of experience. You can offer a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And so the typical objection is, yeah, but I can serve all types of different clients, or I can offer all types of different things. But the reality is that companies want advice and expertise to solve specific problems or to help them to achieve a specific result or outcome, right? If an organization is looking for a generalist, if they're looking for somebody that can do all different kinds of things, they typically already have that in-house. So they turn to external, right? They look outside the organization because inside they typically don't have that level of expertise. And that's where the consultant, the advisor, right, comes in. And so you will increase your value when you get clear about who you can actually best serve. And we're going to go through a few exercises here today to help you to figure that out. But everything begins with clarity on who your ideal client really is and who you want to serve. If you try and go too broad initially, if you hesitate to decide who you should really focus on serving, everything else that you do will be watered down. It's very challenging to develop a message that will get the attention and interest of your ideal clients. And I'll share more about how to do that with you guys coming up here in just a moment. But it's very challenging to do that if you can't speak to a specific type of ideal client or person. And it's the same with your marketing. We see many consultants who have problems with their marketing. They're not generating leads. They're not having conversations the way that they would like to. And we can almost always bring that back to that they're not clear on who their ideal client is. So specialization is really key to making all of this work. And the way to think about this is that specialization is really about being a big fish in a small pond. And so you can choose, right? The generalist is really the small, it's the small fish in a big pond. You become a commodity. It's very hard to see what is your differentiation, what is your advantage, right? What's different between you and others in the marketplace? Are you just another management consultant? Are you just another leadership consultant, right? And so by creating specialization, by getting very clear about who you want to serve and where you can create the highest and best level of results. And again, I'll take you through an exercise on this in just a moment to help you. But when you do that, you start to create differentiation. It becomes easier for people to notice you, to see you, to understand what you stand for. And when you do that, right, you become that big fish in the small pond. And that allows you to become more memorable. So people remember you more, they talk about you more, they can refer more business to you. And you position yourself as a leader, right, as an expert, as a true authority in that space. So the way to think about this is if we kind of just look at these axes here, right, on specialization, high to low, what you want is you really want to be the higher that you move up in specialization, right? And the further that you move across in terms of value, right? Higher value, higher specialization. What you're really doing is you're moving from being a generalist who is typically lower value, lower specialization to higher, and that allows you to command premium fees. A very simple example of this would be think about the general practice doctor, kind of the family doctor, right? They have less expertise, quote unquote, right, compared to a brain surgeon. And that's why a brain surgeon can command significantly higher fees because they're solving a bigger problem. They have a higher level of expertise and specialization. They're both important, right? So I'm not trying to take away from the family doctor, but if you want to be able to command higher fees, and if you want to be able to create greater differentiation and really be known for something, then you want to move towards becoming a specialist and away from being a generalist. And so what I'm going to introduce you guys to here, this is part of what we call the consulting success framework around the ideal client criteria. And there's a few factors here that you can use because I'm guessing that many of you are coming into this or thinking about this from the perspective of you have many years of experience. And so how do you decide what to focus on? So I'll encourage all of you guys to go ahead and write these down. There's the first criteria here is experience. And this is, how many years of experience do you have in a specific industry or working with a specific type of, project or client? And you'd want to rank these on 1 to 5. So 1 being very low, 5 being very high, right? In terms of being positive, like so many years of experience. The next is expertise. How many years, or not years, how deep do you feel that you are an expert in that area? Do people call upon you? and ask questions. Are you really able to answer challenging situations or to add a lot of value in a specific area? If you feel like you have deep expertise in a specific industry or area, then results. Do you actually have tangible results that you can share with people, right? If you look at all the experiences that you have, all the projects that you've worked on, what kind of results have you been able to achieve? And the idea behind this exercise, guys, just to clarify, is you want to look at and list out the different niches. So for example, you might have manufacturing or pharmaceutical or design management, whatever it might be, right? Aerospace, that you have experience, all these different industries. You do this exercise, you go through each niche, ranking them. And so think about, what niche do you have experiences in? Do you have expertise, results? Where have you actually been able to demonstrate results, right? On a scale of 1 to 5. Then potential, where do you see the future? So we have some clients right now, for example, that work in aerospace, and they see that still as being a pretty challenging industry for the next year or two, given what's been going on in the world. And so that might be ranked as slightly lower on the potential scale. Then the next one is interest. And this is a really important one because none of us should be spending time working in an area or just doing work that we don't enjoy. So what are you most interested in doing? And this is important because as you build out your business, you'll be spending a lot of time creating content and engaging in conversations around that topic. So you want to make sure that you're interested in it. So rank that. And then the final criteria here is access. Do you have a network? Do you have connections in that specific area? And so if you do this, what you'll find is you'll be able to actually create a ranking, right? So here in manufacturing, you might find that your total score, so you add all these up, you get 14. And if you compare that to, let's say, fintech, right? Financial tech, you find that you have 24. So if you compare those two, you might go, okay, yeah, through this kind of, scoring exercise, financial tech, fintech is significantly higher. Therefore, that might be a great indication for you or sign for you to spend more time and energy going down that path and creating specialization around that, right? At least as a starting point. So once you've done that, the next thing that you want to do is you want to say, okay, let's just take the example here of fintech. Now I want to figure out who is my actual ideal client within that specific industry. And so here's a few questions and kind of criteria that you can ask to further identify who that person is. So the first would be the industry, right? What industry is your ideal client in? The second is how much revenue does your ideal client company, how much revenue do they generate on an annual basis, or how many employees work in that organization? And these criteria are critical, guys, because once you are clear on these criteria, it'll become very easy for you to actually identify your ideal clients, which is important from a marketing perspective. The third is location. So what is geography? Are they in the US? Are they in Asia? Are they in Western Europe? Where are they in the world? Where's your ideal client? Next is seniority, right? So what level of seniority does your ideal client have? Are they a CFO? Are they a CEO? Are they director of IT? What is their seniority in the organization? Once you have that, right, then it allows you, this is the same as kind of job title. So, number of years as well as job title allows you then to get a very clear picture of who that ideal client is. And once you have that, and of course, we don't have time to go into all the details here in kind of the short presentation we have together and the time we have together. I want to make sure we have time for Q&A, but once you have this, the next thing that you can actually start to do is to develop your message to attract your ideal clients. And so that's what we're going to get into next year, guys. Just go ahead and type in the chat box. Does this make sense, guys? Are you guys kind of following along in terms of that exercise to go through kind of that niche scoring exercise to get clear on, identifying and narrowing in what industry you are likely best suited to focus on? Does that make sense, everyone? Just go ahead and type in the chat box and let me know if it does. And we can certainly take questions here. And I'll just add one more thing, one kind of distinction here. The reason why this is so important is because if you aren't clear on who your ideal client is, if you say, well, yeah, I can serve 3 different industries or 5 different industries. If I said to you, okay, right now you have 1 hour to go out and market your and to work on building your business, who do you focus on? Where do you go? It becomes very challenging. And then you end up having different messages for different people. And so when somebody looks at your LinkedIn profile or your website, they're not actually clear on what you do because you're trying to speak to too many different people. And so it's like that common saying, if you try and be the Jack or Jill of all trades, right, master of none, if you want to build a successful consulting business, you need to be known for something. And that's why the niche scoring kind of method and approach here is helpful to at least provide an initial indication or initial path for you to go down. It doesn't mean that you're locking yourself kind of, in one room. You're not setting anything in stone, but you're getting an initial target to move towards. And that's critical because once you have that, now you can move to the second step, which is developing your magnetic message. And so when I say messaging, really what I'm talking about is how you go about describing your business to your ideal clients. And your messaging determines whether your ideal clients notice you and are interested in what you have to offer. So I'll give you an example of what poor messaging looks like. A person might say, yeah, we help companies with continuous improvement. Now, why is this poor, guys? Why is this a bad example of what we would call a magnetic message? Go ahead and type in the chat box there. I'll see if I can see what people are typing in. But why do you feel this might be a poor example of a message? See what people are typing in. Any thoughts, guys, in terms of why this is not an effective message?
Michael, I can relay those to you. We're seeing it's way too broad and vague. It's not specific to an industry, too general.
Yeah.
Too vague,
Perfect.
not specific. They're on to us. Yeah.
That's great. And sorry, guys, I was looking at the chat box and it looks like many of you are typing in through Q&A, so I didn't see that. But yeah, many of you are exactly right. This is far too general, right? It's not detailed. It doesn't really tell you anything. And so here's an example of what a magnetic message looks like. And you guys are welcome to write this down as well. Of course, this is you may not be in manufacturing, but this will give you a good example of what a magnetic message kind of represents. And it says, we help manufacturing companies achieve and sustain reductions in operational costs of 20%, improve on-time delivery to 99%, and reduce defects to improve product quality to 99% plus. Now, you might be looking at this going, well, Michael, like that doesn't really resonate with me. And I'd say, well, that's probably because you're not the ideal client. But if you've worked in manufacturing, then you know how important these areas are. You know how big of a problem they are. And so this would be a very compelling message. And I know that it is a very compelling message because this is a message that one of our clients developed that really helped them to open up a lot of doors to get into the C-suite, to start conversations with executives at multiple manufacturing companies. So if we compare the differences, right, this is specific. It says who your ideal client is, right? We help manufacturing companies. It talks about what is the problem. It talks about some specific, examples of the kinds of results. So that's what you want to be thinking about when you consider your magnetic message. You really do want it to become specific and speak to your ideal client. And you want to avoid being vague or unspecific. So the more detailed you can be, the better. And the sole purpose here, guys, of your magnetic message is just to get the attention and interest of your ideal clients. I know sometimes people say things like, well, yeah, but I need to, this message doesn't say everything that I can do. I need to tell more about my business. And that actually is going to be counterproductive. The reason for that is if your message is too long, if it tries to say too much, it'll end up not landing. It won't be compelling. It won't really get the attention and interest of your ideal client. And so the sole purpose is just to get their attention and interest. You just want them to go, hey, that's interesting. You're speaking to me. You mentioned the type of person I am, the type of company that I run or that I'm working at. And you've hit on a problem and a result that resonates with me. I'd like to learn more about that. That's the sole purpose of your message, is just to get more attention, more interest. So people raise their hand and say, yes, I'd like to learn more from you. I'd like to have a conversation with you. So your message is not meant to win business for you, right? You always have to have a conversation before you win business. That's not the purpose of your message. The purpose of your message is just to get their attention and interest. It's also not meant to serve a contract. So when you say something in there, you might say, well, yeah, what if those percentages aren't accurate for every single situation? That's okay, because before you actually sign an agreement, right, you're going to have a conversation and you'll be able to communicate with that buyer and tell them whether or not you feel that you can help them and if the percentages that you have in your messaging are going to be relevant to them or not, right? This is not also meant to be the final word. Again, you're going to always have a conversation before you engage with a client. And it's certainly not meant to guarantee any specific results, because even if you mention a guarantee in your messaging, again, you'll have a conversation with the buyer. So you're not locking yourself in. The purpose of your message is just to create attention and interest so people want to have a conversation with you. Then when they have a conversation with you, then you can really refine and adjust based on what you learn about their specific situation. So you're using this really to just get them to raise their hand and say, yes, I'm interested. Tell me more. That's it. That's the sole purpose of your messaging. So what I want to do now, and I know we have kind of limited time, but I want to take you very quickly through, guys, the magnetic messaging formula. So get ready to write this down. there's 3 W's of the magnetic messaging formula. And this is really the basis to create a magnetic message that you can put on your website, your LinkedIn profile, start using in conversations. When somebody says, what do? You can communicate this and really get their attention and their interest. So the first W is who? Who is your ideal client? And so once you've gone through the ideal client kind of clarity process, and you've got clear on what we call that niche scoring exercise, right? Or niche scoring exercise for everyone in the US, you're then able to get very clear on who your ideal client is. And so you're going to state that, right? I work with, or we help a specific type of person. The next W is that there's actually 2 in this one. It's what problem do they have? And this is not just from your perspective, but more importantly, what is the problem that your ideal client would be having? What is on their mind right now? And for many of you who have been, in the role that you're probably trying to speak to. So if you've been a CFO, you might actually find that you're going to be working with other CFOs, or you know what other people in the C-suite think about all the time. Well, use that knowledge and think, what is the problem? What are they actively considering right now? What's causing them to stay up at night? What are they kind of worried about right now? What is the problem, the most painful problem that your ideal client has right now? That is the second W. And then the second part of the second here is, what result do they want, right? So who is your ideal client? What problem do they have? By solving that problem, what is the result or outcome that they want to achieve or that they will see? And the third W, which is incredibly important, but unfortunately a lot of people gloss over, is why should they choose you? This is your differentiation. This is your advantage, right? Do you have a certain number of years of experience? This again comes back, guys, to that niche scoring exercise. When you can look at what results do you have that are tangible that you can talk about? How many years of experience do you have, right? What have you done that positions you as a greater authority than others in that specific area? And so once your message is ready, right, then what you want to start doing is actually going out and creating conversations with your ideal clients and getting in front of them. And we don't have time to go into all this here today, but can share with you later on about some ways that you can learn more about this. But once you have your message, now you can start to actually engage in conversations. Now, the third step, guys, is how to create strategic offers. And this is a really important area because, again, many of you can offer a lot of different things, right? I mean, how many of you guys right now, just go ahead and type in the chat box, how many of you feel like there's more than one thing that you could possibly help somebody with? And maybe I'd love to hear if some of you feel that you're not even sure what to offer, because again, you could provide a lot of different services, a lot of different ideas, a lot of different ways to help organizations. Just go ahead and type that in and let me know kind of where you are right now in that spectrum. I'll take a quick look here. I'll know to look in the right place this time. Yeah, so Peter's saying many, yet many. Okay, totally, right? So this is very, very common. And what I want to help you to do is see that once you get clear on who your ideal client is and you develop your magnetic message, right, to attract their attention and interest, the next thing that you really want to focus on is how to take all of your years of experience and expertise and package it and position it, place value on it and price it, in a way that is really strategic. Because when we talk about making offers, right, or engaging, or what some people call, right, sales, nobody likes to be sold to. But if you can actually take your experience, your expertise, the value that you can provide, and you can learn how to ask really great questions to a buyer, right, to that ideal client, they will actually tell you what they want to buy, which allows you to then actually just simply offer what people want to buy. So people like to buy, but nobody likes to be sold to, right? That's the common saying, and it's very true. And so if you can leverage through your conversations to really identify what people want and then learn how to package and position that, place value on it and price it in a way that resonates and aligns with what your ideal clients want, you will find that you don't actually have to sell. That people will simply say, okay, that's what we want. Yeah, that sounds great. Let's do this. And that's a dynamic that you want to work towards. So you want to, again, take your experience, your expertise, and really figure out where can you deliver the highest and best level of results, and then start engaging in conversations with your ideal clients. And as I mentioned, asking deep, meaningful questions, right? We could do a whole workshop on this topic around asking deep, meaningful questions, but I don't want to kind of leave you guys hanging. So what's really important to know here is not just to ask simple surface level questions. You want to go deep in detail. You want to have this image of an onion where you keep peeling back the layers of the onion to really get at the core of what will drive that ideal client, that buyer, to move to that next step. Where's the real pain coming from? What happens if they don't do this now? Why is this so important to them, right? What will things look like? What will the value be for them in the organization when this project is successful or when this problem is fixed? When you understand what is driving them from an emotional state and a logical state and even stakeholders and everything else that is going on, then you can start to identify not only the value that they truly care about, right? But also you can position it as a clear reason for them to take that next step. And so once you understand that, you can then kind of go through what we call the strategic offers and offer them and align what they want. So it's much easier for them to say yes. And I'll kind of paint two broad strokes here in terms of what strategic offers look like. And these, especially the first one, will help you to open up many doors when you understand it. So we'll kind of look at the two types here. The first is what we call a discovery offer. So many people think that when you get into the business of consulting, you right away go into you start doing $50,000, $100,000, $1 million engagements. But the reality is that unless you already have a relationship with a buyer, and unless they have received a referral about you, most organizations are not going to feel comfortable. They're going to see too much risk in saying, yeah, let's just start with a $150,000 engagement, right? Because they don't know whether or not you will actually deliver. There's too much risk in terms of money, in terms of their time, their team's time, and also what happens if this doesn't work out, how will the organization look at that decision maker, right? That they've made the wrong decision potentially. Therefore, one of the best steps that you can take when you're starting your business is to develop what we call a discovery offer. This is a starting point offer. It's figuring out what can you offer to an ideal client that it will be very easy for them to say yes to, that will reduce or almost eliminate the risk. These offers typically range from about $1,500 to about $15,000. It could be a bit higher, it can be a bit lower, but somewhere in that range. And they help the client, they help the buyer to move in the right direction. Of course, at that price level, at that level of value, you can't deliver the full solution that they typically want, but you can get them moving in the right direction. And so that makes it a lot easier for the buyer to say, sure, that sounds good. Like, I don't have too much to lose by doing that. Now you get your foot in the door. And when you do that, you can demonstrate value. You can build trust, right? You can strengthen the relationship. And the first sale is always the hardest sale to make. So once you're in the organization now, and they see that you actually do deliver value, that you are, creating results, that you're helping them to make progress, you're solving problems, right? They're feeling like it's a great investment. Now it becomes much easier to move into what we call the full engagement. And the full engagement can range from, anything from $20,000 to $20 million, depending on what it is, right? And what you're doing. But your full engagement, typically you'll have a few different options that you provide to a buyer. So it's not a take it or leave it type of situation. But the great thing about the discovery offer is it gives you insight and an opportunity to really identify what the best next steps are going to be. So rather than going and kind of guessing what the organization needs, you do a discovery offer, which could be an assessment, could be an audit, could be a workshop, could be some kind of training, could be a series of conversations or interviews, right? But you get clarity around what the organization really needs. You help to identify opportunities or dangers. You provide high-level recommendations. And from that, the natural next step is to move into a bigger next step engagement, which is, again, the full engagement. And you provide a few options around how to help them and how to do that. So depending on price and value, they can choose something that makes sense for them. So again, we can talk more about this, guys, if you in the Q&A, if you have questions about these, but I wanted to introduce you to the two types of strategic offers, kind of, again, broad strokes, because the discovery offer can really help you to open up a lot of doors and to get business flowing, compared to just trying to go full engagement right away, where if you don't have a relationship, you might face a lot of resistance. Does that make sense, guys? Just type in the kind of chat Q&A box there if this kind of the two broad strokes make sense, first of all, before we go on to the next step here in the final one. Cool. Okay, I'm saying makes sense. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, we can definitely open this up, guys, here to more questions when we get to the Q&A. All right. So now that you have your offers ready, and of course, you don't have necessarily your offers ready just yet. We're kind of talking at a high level. You need to work through and think through these. The next step, right? Step number 4 is what we call really building a marketing engine. And the marketing engine is what's going to help you to shift away from just relying on your network or referrals. And we see many people, many consultants who will actually get to a nice place in their business just on the back of referrals in their network. But inevitably, this almost always happens, like 95% of the time, people will wake up one day going and realizing that the referral well, right, that was bountiful and full of water, right, and was sustaining them and nourishing them, it started to dry up. And they're not getting the amount of referrals that they used to. Or they'll go, yeah, I've gotten to, to this level, but I've kind of plateaued, and I realize and recognize that I won't be able to grow the business to get to that next level without actually doing more marketing. And so the thing with marketing and consulting business, like any business really, is that the sooner that you start marketing, the sooner that you start building out this engine, the sooner that you're going to actually be able to see results and kind of fruits of your labors. But marketing and consulting business is very different than marketing a product or marketing, even life coaching or other things. Marketing a consulting business where you're working with organizations requires certain nuances and a certain approach. And so what I want to do now is share with you 3 marketing methods that will allow you to get in front of your ideal clients. And we, again, can't go into all these in great detail, but I want to introduce these to you because even with what we're talking about here today, you can start taking some action in that direction if you haven't already. And now marketing is, it's kind of the art and science of creating meaningful conversations with your ideal prospective clients. And I just want to drill on this for one moment, guys, because a lot of people see plenty of different opportunities. They look at social media, they look at LinkedIn, they look at the latest technology, right? And it's kind of this shiny object syndrome where, I don't know how many of you feel this way. If you do, go ahead and type in the chat box, but how many of you just feel, yeah, there's so many different options that I could, and tools and technologies that I could use to market my business or to work on my business. Okay, and for those of you saying yes, right, that's very common because the truth is we do have more options than we've ever had before. But building a successful consulting business, if you reverse engineer how you actually win business, right? So you take the signed agreement and the engagement, you work backwards from that. What you'll find is you always have to have a meaningful conversation, right? Nobody writes a $50,000 check or a $100,000 check or whatever it might be without having a conversation. And so the number one focus that you should have is conversations. All the other things that help you to support conversations are fine, but you always want to ask yourself, what is the most direct path to creating a conversation today, right? The more that you have, the more conversations that you have, the more that you're going to be able to really create opportunities to win business. And so, as I mentioned here, not working on your marketing, not focusing on having conversations really is a dangerous place to be because it means that you are reliant on other sources, or it means that you don't have a plan. And you are then more susceptible to the income roller coaster, right? Where you might have one client and you feel all good and income is coming in, and all of a sudden that client pauses or the project naturally comes to an end, and then you have to go searching and hunting for the next project and the next client. And that's not really a business, right? That's just providing your services. So it's really important that you start thinking about working on your marketing. And this is what we call the entrepreneurial consultant, because many people will say, yeah, I'm a consultant. But when you look at what they actually are doing, they're simply working with one client, maybe 2 clients, and they're delivering. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're just delivering services and you're not actually working on actively building a business, then you're a contractor, right? You have a job. But if you want to create more freedom, if you want to benefit from greater systems and processes, and you want to be able to really have unlimited income earning potential and a lot more flexibility with your schedule, which comes as a result of creating more leverage in your offerings, in your price points, being more strategic about your systems, your processes, that's the mindset of an entrepreneurial consultant. So I just want to, kind of hit on this for a moment, that there's a big difference, guys, between being a quote unquote consultant and being a consulting business owner, or what we like to call an entrepreneurial consultant. And when you shift the mindset to being an entrepreneurial consultant, you end up working, you try and spend more time working also on the business, not just in the business. And that's where you can really start to realize your potential and see much greater success. So there's 3 main ways that you can go about marketing your consulting business. And these are part of what we call the marketing engine. The first is what we call the network reactivation campaign. And this is a series of messages that you use to essentially reactivate your network. It's very interesting when you ask most people in professional services, where does the majority of your business come from? People typically say referrals. And if you ask them, well, what percentage of you, how many of you actually have a plan to go out and get more referrals? Almost nobody puts up their hands, right? Because they're very passive. It's when a referral comes to them, great, but they're not actively doing much to kind of, engage with their network. So what we have is the network reactivation campaign. And, we have a bunch of scripts and templates and so forth that we offer to people with this. But this is really about letting everybody in your world know what you do and who you want to work with and the kinds of results that you've been creating. Because again, when more people know what you do, even sometimes people that are not your ideal clients, like even family members and friends and past vendors or, bosses or whatever, coworkers, whatever it might be, colleagues, the more people that know what you do, the more opportunity that there will be for them to actually say, yeah, actually, I do need help with that. Or yeah, my uncle, Tony, is a CTO, and I should introduce you to him because I think he's trying to figure that issue out right now. And so it's amazing the kinds of opportunities that can be created when you start telling more and more people what you're actually doing. So that's number one, is really don't wait. Don't wait to have your website. Don't wait to have a perfect LinkedIn profile. Start taking action now to let people know what you're doing. Number two was called new client prospecting. And this is actually the majority of the marketing, because the vast majority of people that could be your ideal clients are not just people in your network unless you already have a very large network. And so here, what you want to do is you want to start getting on the radar of your ideal clients. You want to go from being unknown to becoming known, from being invisible to becoming visible, because the more people that know that you exist, know what you do, and start to actually see value and feeling that you are an authority, that you are an expert, that you can help them, the more that those people will actually start to engage with you. And it doesn't mean that they're going to buy from you right away, but they might start engaging on your posts, in your articles, responding to your emails, having a conversation. And the more of that you are doing, the more that you actually build up your pipeline of business. And so new client prospecting is incredibly important. And then the third is what we call specialized content. And so if you look at this kind of research study from HubSpot, they found that B2B companies that blog, and so you could essentially say those that create content, create 67% more leads per month than those who don't. And so specialized content is really about creating content. Could be an article, could be podcasts, could be videos, could be webinars, all different formats. But the idea is that you demonstrate your value. There's no better way to demonstrate value to people that you do not have a relationship with already than through content. And so the more prolific that you are with your content creation, the more detailed and specific that you can be with that content, the more that you kind of embed your opinion, or you kind of use polarization in your content, right? You really take a stance and you speak directly to your ideal client. The more that you do that, the more that you will see that people will feel, this person really gets me, right? I read this, or I listened to this, and what they said is exactly what I've been thinking about. That's our exact challenge. And so now, even without a direct contact with you, they start to actually form this opinion about you in their minds. And now they want to reach out to you when they need help. It's a reason why people who write books, right? Books can be such an effective marketing tool. Not many people make money directly from book sales, but when people read a book, right, they learn from that and they start to think, yeah, that person might be able to help me, right? They seem to be an expert. So again, it doesn't matter the format so much, as long as your ideal clients will consume in that format. But when you combine these three things together, your network reactivation campaign, that's a low-hanging fruit, your new client prospecting, getting in front of new potential clients consistently on an ongoing basis, and then creating specialized content so you cast this net of people who will start to just come to you so you don't have to always go to them. And also then leveraging and taking that specialized content and putting it into your new client prospecting and your network reactivation. So you're not just reaching out to people saying, hey, buy my stuff, because that's not the approach you want to take. Nobody should be salesy. What you want to do is you want to lead with value. You want to lead with, how can I add something to this relationship, right? Think investing or depositing into the relationship bank before you try and make a withdrawal. So these three things together, when you work on them, really start to create massive pipeline and opportunity, and really will help you to build your business. So now that you have the three kind of methods to help you market your consulting business, right? And you kind of go ahead, create that meaningful conversation with people, because you'll be able to start creating more conversations. What's going to happen is you're going to actually start seeing that more people will engage with you. You're going to have more people reaching out to you. You're going to have more people referring business to you. This happens so consistently with all the consultants that we work with. It's just tried and true. It works over and over, regardless of what's happening in the economy or what kind of pandemic, or situation we're in. People always have problems, and they're always looking to get help to achieve results. And if you position yourself and you are visible to them, and they see you as an expert in that area that is relevant to them, they will come to you. So I want to open this up here for Q&A, guys, and kind of keep us hopefully on time. But just to mention, because I know some people came on a little bit later, to honor you and just to thank you for watching and being part of the presentation today. I want to provide you with a free copy of my latest book, The Future of Consulting: How to Turn Today's Opportunities into Tomorrow's Business Advantage. And Tony and Kimberly set up a special link for that, which is at execunet.com/consulting success. I think you just put in a bit of information or however they have that kind of structured, but we'll get notified and we'll make sure that you get a digital copy of The Future of Consulting. So with that being said, just want to open this up here to you guys. And if anyone has any questions about building a consulting business, want some help, or you're looking for a resource, feel free to also use that same form that Tony and Kimberly here created, and just get in touch with us, and we'll be more than happy to help or reach out, guys. So yeah, Tony, I'll turn this back over to you, and very happy to answer any questions that people have about starting, running, and growing a successful consulting business.
Michael, thank you. And the chat is open, so please send your questions in. I did get some questions from our audience before our talk aired today, so I'm going to pepper you with those for a few minutes until
Let's do it, yeah.
Things to bother you with, all right? So let's take a different view of this, Michael. Could you share with us what are some of the top consulting businesses thriving today?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's easier to actually point to the ones that are facing more challenge today. So as I mentioned, we have a few consultants who spend a lot of time in hospitality and travel, aerospace. And so they've had to kind of reinvent themselves. But what's interesting about consulting is that even if you take hospitality, and someone that's spent a lot of years working in hotels and so forth, even though they've cut budgets, even though things have been very challenging, hotels, airlines, they still have problems. They still need help. And so the opportunity is to always figure out how do you shift? How do you reposition so that you can still be of service, so you can still add value to those organizations? But to answer your question directly, Tony, there's many industries that are, people are seeing great success. We had many clients throughout 2020 who had their best years ever. And so, whether it's in food, whether it is in pharma, whether it's, I'm trying to think of others here right now, solar. I mean, the industries are very wide with people all across the world. But I would go as far as saying that as long as you are an expert, meaning that you can provide value and an outcome to an organization, and as long as that organization or the person in the organization has a problem or a need or a desire or wants to make an improvement, then you can create a viable business around that. And as long as there's more than just one or two people that have that problem, and typically, right, there'll be hundreds, then you have a massive opportunity to leverage and take your skills and expertise and turn that into a very profitable business.
Makes sense. So Michael, of course, many of the people listening to us today are corporate executives, right? In fact, almost all of them. Some people's strategy for becoming independent consultants is to quit their job and then look for their first clients. In your experience, is this a good idea or a bad idea?
So it's a good, overall, it's a good idea. And the reason for that is that, you kind of cut the cord and there's no turning back, or at least, you feel like there's no turning back, right? You've made a bigger commitment to yourself, maybe to your family, maybe to those around you. And so you need to take more action, right? The alternative to that is that you make the transition while you're still engaged in employment. And we've worked with many people who have done that successfully. The challenge when you have kind of one foot in, one foot out, is that you don't have as much time to actually work on building your business, and you're not as committed to it because you have other distractions going on. I also recognize that for some people, you may not be in the situation where you can just cut the cord and go in 100%, right? Maybe you might be the sole provider in your household. You might have whatever situation that you're in. Typically, I would say if you're able to dive in, you will be able to see results faster in most cases than somebody who is trying to transition with one foot in and one foot out. But many people have been able to be successful in both of those approaches. So I'd say, first of all, figure out what is your situation. Can you commit, and do you have some runway in terms of some cash reserves? And can you be focused for a couple of months, a few months, to really get things moving in the right direction? And if you can do that, then go in 100%. If you're not in a position where you're able to do that right now, then you can still start, and you should still start to plant the seeds and to take action now, because the sooner that you plant those seeds and take the right actions around building relationships and building the business, even if it's not at 100%, it's still going to benefit you and still going to help you to see success and to see progress faster.
Mm-hmm. Many of our listeners are wondering, what do I charge for my services? How do you figure that out, Michael?
Yep. So, there's many ways to go about doing this. I'm not a fan of hourly fees, many reasons for that, but just to kind of summarize, when you're charging on an hourly fee basis, the client is going to typically want to engage with you less because they know every time that they reach out to you, you're going to charge them. And the consultant then wants to kind of drag out the project, even if consultant has a lot of integrity, right? They know that if they deliver very quickly, they don't make much money. And so the consultant is essentially not incentivized to try and produce a result quickly. But for the client, the faster they can get the result, the better it is for them. So you're kind of being penalized to provide a result sooner to the buyer. And that's the reason why developing your fees around return on investment and value is always a much better way to go. And the way to do that is you first go through what we call a meaningful consulting sales conversation, where in kind of a partnership with the buyer, you really ask deep, meaningful questions that help you to identify and then communicate the value that will be created as part of that engagement. And then you work backwards and figure out what would be a positive return on investment and a win-win for both the buyer and for you. And in many cases, that'll be somewhere in the range of a 5 to 6 times return on investment for the buyer. So let's just make it very, very simple. You've identified it's going to be $1 million improvement for the buyer. So your fees could be around $200,000, right? A company might invest $200,000 to get you to solve whatever problem they have. And that's going to create an extra $1 million for them. Now, pricing is part art, part science. So there's a lot of variables and factors that go into it, because if you try and charge too much, right, it becomes unreasonable. And if you don't charge enough, you'll leave a lot of money on the table. And even worse than that, the buyer might look at you and go, well, why are they charging so little? Maybe they're not that good at what they do. So again, a lot that we could go into this. Pricing and pricing strategy is a bigger discussion. But certainly there's some resources, and we talk about this in the book as well, or you guys are welcome to reach out. But I hope that's helpful in kind of starting to get that conversation going.
Great, thank you. So what are some common self-management challenges, Michael? When you're an independent consultant, you are independent. Is that tough to do on your own?
For some people, it certainly is. Running a business by yourself, or at least getting things started early on, can be lonely. And especially when you come from the corporate world, where you're surrounded by maybe an assistant or colleagues, or just a lot of people, it can feel lonely. And so the best thing that I recommend people do is find a community. And I think that's great that you all here are part of ExecuNet, because there's a community, and communities are a great way to not feel alone and to gain different perspectives and opinions. And we certainly find the community that we have with consultants to be a great resource for people. But the other thing that I would say to that is, one of the greatest challenges that people typically have is marketing, right? Areas that you feel less comfortable or confident in are typically where you'll spend less time. So it's quite common for people to not really spend much time or energy or focus working on the marketing of their business, even though they know deep down inside that it's essential for the growth and for them to realize their potential. And so what I would kind of recommend to people, and what we say a lot in our world, is imperfect action. You don't have to wait for everything to be just right. Right? Progress is better than perfection. And so if you can just start making little steps, right? You don't have to wait for the website to be perfect, LinkedIn to be perfect. You don't have to have the perfect message or the perfect offerings. You want to have a good foundation in these things, but you don't need to wait for them to be 100%, because the reality is they'll never be 100%. All these things evolve over time. So you make progress in them, you feel good and confident and clear that you have a foundation, and then you just need to go out and you need to challenge yourself. And you need to, and I would encourage you all very respectfully to look at marketing, to look at building your business, not as something that is for you, but it's something that is for the people that you want to serve. If you approach marketing from the perspective of it's your responsibility because you care, because if there's people out there who have a problem and you are in a position and you know that you can solve that problem, and you don't let them know that you could help them, you're doing them a disservice. A quick kind of analogy or image of this would be, think about, you look outside your house, the window, and you see that your neighbor's house is on fire. You would never look at their house and go, oh, I feel bad for them, and kind of go back to doing what you're doing. Like that would be a disservice, right? That would be dangerous and negligence. However, right, you would go to help them. Same thing in business. If you can identify people who have a problem, then all you need to do is let them know that you can help them. And the best way to do this is to demonstrate value through content and through conversations. And so they can make up their mind. And as a consultant, you never try and force somebody, because you can't force people to do what you want them to do. All you can do is demonstrate great value, try and add as much value as you can to that relationship, let them know that you're there, and then they'll reach out to you if they want. So really look at consulting and marketing as a way of providing the highest level of service. And what we've found is when people start to adopt that mindset and really look at marketing as just, no pressure, I'm just gonna start engaging in conversations, let people know what I do, and demonstrate value to people, that it becomes a lot more comfortable. And as they do more of that, they start seeing greater results. And when they start seeing greater results, it increases their confidence, they take more action. And so you have kind of this virtuous cycle that really continues to build momentum and grow the business.
It's a really bright perspective. So on the topic of marketing and spreading the word, Michael, let's talk about networking a bit more. It is a daunting thought for many of us to network outside of our very close inner circle of colleagues and friends and peers. How do you effectively spread the word outside that circle so that others will recognize you as an expert with an independent consultancy they should pay attention to?
Yeah, so I push that beyond just the word networking for a moment, and really look at how can you become visible, right? So going from invisible to visible, from off the radar to on the radar, and LinkedIn is one platform for that. So by posting articles or snippets or ideas or commentary, opinions on LinkedIn, that's one place. Another is going to industry associations or professional groups and either becoming members there or offering to give a talk, present a webinar, write an article, find blogs, different publications that your ideal clients are consuming, and start to show up in those places. Find people that already have access to your ideal clients and show up in those places. And the more that you do that, the more that people will start to recognize you and to see what you're doing. But the other way as well is, again, coming from that mindset of service, even though it might not be natural to you, recognize that your goal is just to let people know that you're there and to provide value to those people so that they can make a decision. And so when you start to identify who your ideal clients are, and there's many different ways to do that, whether it's using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, using lists from associations or different technology and tools to identify those people, start reaching out to those people. But the other way is the exercise with what we call the network reactivation campaign, is going back to all the people that you have relationships with, telling them what you're doing, and then asking them if they know anyone that you should talk to. And if you do that consistently, but even when you start doing that, you'll find that people will actually suggest people that you should reach out to. They'll make introductions, they'll send emails and kind of provide you with referrals. And we find that to work really well to at least get things jump started.
Okay, we're going to start to wrap this up. I can't believe we're at the top of the hour. Michael, thank you so much for making time and sharing your insight. Thank you to the hundreds that tuned in. I hope I got to most of your questions. I think I did. I know I didn't get to all, but please follow that link if you have any. If you have questions that occur to you after our time together is over, that's what that link is for. Let us know how you feel, and by all means, take advantage of that book offer. So, Michael, before we officially wrap up today's session, any final thoughts for our audience?
I'm a big fan, guys, of imperfect action. I think each and every one of you has a deep desire and to realize your true potential, right? Living life without regrets. And so whatever it is that you truly want to achieve, whatever that potential is, I would encourage you to take imperfect action. Just start down that path, seek out whatever information, people or resources can help you to get there faster and begin, because that way, at least you won't look back and go, I wish I started that, or, why did I wait so long? Now's your time. Go at it. There's so many opportunities in the world. And so I just want to thank you all for being part of this presentation here today, and look forward to having some conversations with some of you.
On that inspiring final message, thank you again, Michael. Thank you all. I look forward to seeing you at the next session of ExecuNet Masterclass. Bye for now.